Your top stories this evening, sponsored by Courts, bringing value home. No deal making. Finance Minister clarifies visit to ExxonMobil headquarters. Enforcement playing a major role in road safety. More than 10,000 drivers charged with traffic offences. And CH&PA mounts legal action against owners of large plots of undeveloped lands. HGP Nightly News begins now. Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. I'm Travis Chase with the Tuesday, August 15 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know this evening. The Central Housing and Planning Authority has begun mounting legal action against entities that have acquired large plots of state land but have failed to live up to the terms of agreement for the acquisition of those lands. Rodin James reports this evening.
The Central Housing and Planning Authority announced Monday that a process to mount legal action against entities to recover large plots of state lands has commenced. The announcement was made by Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Leland Saul.
Let me say the terms and condition of the agreement of sale. The company that was involved in the agreement with CH&PA has not lived up to the terms and conditions.
A plot of land purchased by Chinese logging company Bai Shanlin will also be at the center of the court battle. As explained by Mr. Saul, the original buyer of that plot of land, Sunset Lake, did not keep up to its end of the bargain. However, that company has since changed hands.
The directors of that company subsequently sold the company to Bai Shanlin. So actually, we are engaging the company that we have the agreement with.
Mr. Saul noted that there are about 2 or 3 other large companies that the authority intends to mount court action against, but it first has its eyes on one company.
In relation to Bai Shanlin, we're presently pursuing legal action.
These efforts by the authority is to help fulfill the housing needs of Guyanese as the authority continues to complain about the shortage of lands to meet the housing needs of the people. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Minister of Finance Winston Jordan says Guyana's debt burden will continue to get heavier due to what he called unnecessary commitments that the nation will have to shoulder. Jeff on Vickery is on this story.
The debt will rise. Again, the issue here is not whether the debt is rising, it's whether the relative ratio is within the livable standard.
The minister said Guyana's debt increased by $53 million at the start of 2017. He stated that based on recent financial statistics, Guyana still has a lot more to do.
Of this 53 million, 17.3 million was due to the debt that we had to take over from AHI, Atlanta Hotel Inc., for the Marriott Hotel. $17.3 million. Another wasted project for which you and all of us as taxpayers will have to pay.
Mr. Jordan further noted that when the APNU AFC coalition took office back in 2015, it had been able to identify all the outstanding loan agreements which the previous government had signed.
For example, the Indian loan for the ferries was in the pipeline before we came into power. The Indian loan for the bypass road was in the pipeline before we came into power. The East Coast Demerara Highway with the China Exim Bank was there before we came into power.
Several loan agreements were eventually renegotiated.
For a HIPC country or a country that just come out of HIPC, our debt should be 60% of GDP. Should be in the region of 60% of GDP. At our last count, it was somewhere in the region of between 48 and 50%. So we have some room to play with.
Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
You're watching the HGP Nightly News. Thanks for staying with us. More than 10,000 Guyanese have been charged for traffic offences so far for 2017. According to Traffic Chief Dion Moore, increased patrolling and enforcement have contributed to the reduction of traffic incidents. Javon Vickery is on the story.
Traffic Chief Dion Moore says bad judgment and irresponsible behavior are the root causes of most major accidents across the country, accidents which have resulted in fatalities. He's rooting for adherence to road safety practices.
One of the other things you can do is to leave early if you know you have a function to attend to, you have to go to work. We must think of the prevailing situation. The traffic in the mornings are very busy and it takes a lot of time. You cannot leave early, leave late to reach early. You must leave early to reach early. A lot of people measure time against distance, and it is difficult. You must take into consideration the volume of traffic.
Mr. Moore stated that enforcement will continue. Based on analytical data, the traffic chief says several enforcement drives, including traffic stops for breathalyzer testing, have had a positive impact on the way drivers respect the rules of the road.
Has that played an impact in the way, people adhere to traffic rules?
Yes, one of the most significant things in traffic is the enforcement. That is what helps persons to come to grip, come to understand the need for them to practice road safety. Without enforcement, a lot of these drivers would choose to do otherwise. They choose to do all sorts of things. So enforcement is one of our priority, coupled with education as well.
The figures to date show a 28% reduction in accidents and a 25% reduction in road fatalities. So far, 55 accidents have been recorded, with 60 fatalities when compared to 76 accidents and 8 deaths in the same period last year. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
An interesting story now. It was no deal making. Finance Minister Winston Jordan has clarified the reason for a recent visit by the 5 government ministers to ExxonMobil's headquarters in Houston, Texas. Gordon James reports.
5 government ministers recently returned from a visit with officials of ExxonMobil at the company's headquarters in Houston, Texas. Those on the trip were Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman, Minister of Foreign Affairs Carl Greenidge, Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson, and Minister of Business Dominic Gaskin. Those 5 ministers were appointed by President Granger, along with the Presidential Advisor on Petroleum Dr. Jan Mangal, to report on the sector. They are what the President called the Quintet Plus One. Mr. Jordan explained that talks on various issues between the government and ExxonMobil are ongoing, and among the reasons for the visit was to move those talks along formal lines.
And so they will occur as often as they should or circumstances warrant. But at a minimum, they should be at least twice a year. And we are suggesting once in Guyana, once in Houston. All right? So that not means that we spying on each other, but we're keeping our friends close.
The minister was then asked to provide specifics of matters discussed during the visit.
It's oil and gas matters. I mean, come on, it's in the interest, it's in the national interest. There are oil and gas matters, from everything from production, making certain that we're still on target, the level of investment that's being made, cost oil, profit oil, modeling our flows and so on, So it was 2 days, so it's very intense. It was very intense.
No prior announcement was made about the trip, and according to Mr. Jordan, the discussion in summary was based on how both parties intend to move forward.
Wasn't any deal making or any need to have technical officers and so on. This is the quintet part. When technical officers and technical negotiations are required, we are going to have technical officers guided by, perhaps, or overseen by some political person.
The contract signed between the 2 parties was not discussed. Guyana has signed on to a 50-50 sharing agreement with ExxonMobil, and is also set to receive a 2% royalty. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. There is a limited number of public servants working in interior locations, and this is a challenge which is presently being addressed by the subject ministries. Kristen Macklingam has more on this story.
A special effort is being made to train more Indigenous folk to take up much-needed public posts in their villages, including posts as health workers, doctors, nurses, and midwives, because a considerable amount of those who have already been trained have not returned to their communities. This is according to Junior Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Valerie Garrido-Low.
A nurse from Paramacadoy or perhaps from Bamboo Creek might be asked to serve at least a year or two in that hospital before she returns to her village. So we have different things happening that would prevent, but we're not giving up. We're training more, lots more, so that whatever happens, each village in the end, our government plans that each village will have a health worker.
Minister Garrido-Low explained that presently there is a shortage of nurses throughout Guyana, and district hospitals such as the one in Madia would have a demand for more nurses because of the population it serves. Hence, it is imperative that more medical workers be trained as soon as possible.
That's a mission of our government, and we plan to fulfill that mission. It will take a little time, but we're working on it.
She added that a recent success is the number of young Indigenous adults who have signed up with the Guyana Defence Force, and that it is expected in a short while more Indigenous people will venture off into the different sectors to serve their communities and the country at large. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingam.
Thank you, Kristen. The hope of saving the sugar industry keeps waning at the level of the government. The performance of the industry over the past few months has been unhelpful. Royden James reports.
A few days after Minister of Finance Winston Jordan laid the half-year report in the National Assembly, the Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union, GAU, reiterated their position that the government can save sugar. The union gave what it thinks are recommendations that could be used in this regard. The government has already made their position clear on the sugar industry, and as explained by Minister Jordan on Monday, as a result of the half-year performance of the sector, the government is being more cautious about sugar and has even had to revise the growth rate to 3.1%.
There's nothing that we could do about sugar, all right? And for the time being, there's nothing that we can do about sugar. It will take us a long time to get sugar righted. And when we get sugar righted, it will not be in terms of the heady days of the 70s and so on, where we had sugar production of 355,000 tons, 307,000 tons. No.
Mr. Jordan stressed that sugar currently remains a major sector in the country's economy, but it is not playing a role to help sustain the economy.
This massive sector called Gaisuku doesn't have the capacity at the moment to play the role it used to play even a decade ago. Do you know that the employment cost of Gaisuku is more than the earnings of Gaisuku?
Mr. Jordan reiterated that Gaisuku is surviving on the backs of Guyanese taxpayers.
Without the bailouts from the government, Gaisuku will not survive. And the bailouts that we're doing are just tapping the surface, so to speak. Gaisuku's deficit is continuing to climb.
At the end of this year, the sugar estates which were earmarked to be closed will be closed. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thanks for staying tuned to the HGP Nightly News. It's 71 years since India became a free independent nation, and the ties that bind Guyana and India remained intact. Kristen Macklingam reports from India's Independence Day flag-raising ceremony in Georgetown.
I'm here at the Indian Cultural Center, where the Indian High Commission to Guyana has hosted a simple flag-raising ceremony to honor 71 years of India becoming a free nation.
Over the years, the government of India has assisted Guyana by providing much-needed resources, and this was highlighted at the Indian High Commission's flag-raising ceremony to mark India's 71st Independence Day on Tuesday.
दीप नहीं दिल जले हैं खाली तेरे बिन जब
Indian High Commissioner to Guyana, Venkachalam Mahalingam. High Commissioner Mahalingam explained that India has played the role of a reliable partner to Guyana by committing itself particularly to Guyana's development programs.
India is currently committed to provide 81.5 million US dollars soft loan under its line of credit and 9 million US dollars grant for various projects such as building of link road between East Coast and East Bank Demerara, buying ocean-going ferry vessel, upgrading 3 primary hospitals, procuring mobile and fixed pumps, and setting up of a Center of Excellence in IT in Guyana.
He added that in the past, India helped Guyana in building its national stadium at Providence, East Bank Demerara, installing traffic lights, fixing mobile pumps for drainage and irrigation, and by providing scholarships and other initiatives which have benefited Guyana tremendously.
Our trade and economic relations with Guyana have not only deepened but also broadened with enhanced relations, particularly in the mining, forestry, education, and pharmaceutical sectors. We are proud that the public sector bank, Bank of Baroda, is improving its performance and flying our flag high with the introduction of ATM soon for the first time in Guyana.
According to the Indian High Commissioner, there is much more in store for Guyana in the years to come as the fruitful bilateral relations between India and Guyana continue. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingam.
Thank you, Kristen. To improve solid waste management practices among youths, the Ministry of Communities conducted a 2-week Green Generation Guyana campaign in Region 3. Ina George reports.
More than 90 West Demerara youths participated in the Ministry of Communities Regional Green Generation Campaign, an initiative intended to educate youths on the importance of solid waste management. Regional Education Officer of Region 3, Penelope McIntosh, tells us a little more about the program.
It was planned in conjunction with Ministry of Communities and the Department of Education Region 3 along with the regional administration. The camp itself was initially for primary and secondary school students within the West Demerara Secondary School catchment area, and I was Crane Primary, Vredenhoek Primary, Vredenhoek Secondary, and West Demerara Secondary.
She says it is important that youths understand that they have a part to play to promote Guyana as a green nation. Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Dawn Hastings, says the government is committed to inculcate in youths the knowledge to become rounded leaders.
With this in mind, the Ministry of Communities created the 3Gs initiative. It is a public education campaign to promote improved solid waste management in the home and in your communities.
She also spoke of the Ministry of Communities' mandate to promote empowered, cohesive, and sustainable communities.
Keeping Guyana clean and safe is one of your responsibilities. It is my responsibility as a minister. It is the responsibility of the councillors in the region, the responsibility of the overseers and councillors in your local democratic organs, parents, teachers, students, all. It is all our business.
A similar program was conducted in August 2016 along the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, where approximately 200 students from 20 primary schools benefited. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, Ayana George.
Revenues raked in from the country's oil and gas industry is expected to boost consumers' spending power and simultaneously allow for a rise in Guyana's value-added products. Here's Kristen Macklingam with more.
It is being predicted that Guyana's emerging oil and gas sector will boost the spending power of local consumers significantly as a result of the anticipated increase in GDP per capita. That's according to President of the 32nd West Indies Agricultural Economics Conference 2017, Dr. Carlisle Pemberton.
Yeah, it should spawn a whole new processing and industrial agricultural activity in terms of value-added products. So again, one would expect a rise in the value-added end of agriculture and the more exotic products.
Dr. Pemberton explained that with a booming oil and gas industry in the country, locals will be able to purchase products which are made right in Guyana and sold by the Guyana Marketing Corporation. However, not all areas would be impacted highly as others, he says.
But I hope not a decline in the traditional agriculture. So that will be my hope, yes. And that may be very well the impact.
He added that in terms of rice and sugar, while the sugar industry can benefit significantly from oil revenues, the rice industry is not expected to be so lucky since it is private sector based with a lot of investment by farmers, but still not quite profitable.
And quite a lot of investment in terms of rice mills and in terms of equipment that farmers have, tractors and equipment and so on. So I think with that kind of an industrial base to your industry, then it will be, I can't see it having too much an impact on the rice industry.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingham.
Good evening. I'm Stanford Howard with the AGP Sportscast. The Guyana Tennis Association has been facing some peculiar challenges recently. Colwyn Abrams will tell us more about that.
Tennis is a growing sport in Guyana since the executive became active in 2005. But facilities to accommodate this expanding sport is very limited. I caught up with the president of the Guyana Tennis Association, Mr. Jamal Goodluck. He gave us an insight on the development of this sport in Guyana.
All right, so tennis in Guyana, we've been around for quite some time. However, the executive has started back functioning around 2005 to current. We will have seen the expansion of our programs, more kids coming into our clubs as well as the national level. However, we do not have the space to accommodate so many kids, but we do recognize that, you know, with the growth of more interested persons within the sport, there is scope for growth.
The challenges have been many, according to Jamal.
The challenges are quite a lot, as I would have stated just now, in terms of the facilities to accommodate our expanding program. Currently, the Tennis Association operates from 3 public areas. So we have the National Racket Center and the National Park. And those courts add up to about five courts. Realistically speaking, we have about 200 and something persons playing tennis from juniors to seniors, and that cannot accommodate the flexibility of time for those persons. So facility is one of the major challenges that plagues the association, and the engagement to move beyond the issue of the lack of facilities.
Goodluck explains that 2017 has been a good year so far.
Because we've had a very successful GBTI Open, and out of that, the GBTI has recognized that tennis is a growing sport and it provides an avenue for our kids to expose them to a different life, a different set of discipline. So they would have agreed to have our high intensity program be hosted at that facility. So they have now become ownership of our high intensity program, and we're going to be able to host our IGG there, which has been very fruitful, the relationship.
Plans for 2018 have already been drafted and will take effect very soon.
Next year is going to be very exciting for the association, because recently we would have just concluded our first ever meeting at the ITF AGM, which was held in Vietnam. One of our vice presidents was able to attend that. So key decisions were made, and also getting a sense of where the direction of tennis is going worldwide to filter down to the level of the association in Guyana. That being said, a strategic plan has been drafted and worked out with the ITF, which is what we're going to stick from 2017 to 2020. And hopefully those inputs we would have put into our strategic plan will produce our facilities, our kids, and a better program for Guyana.
According to Goodluck, Georgetown has always been the focal point for tennis. However, with the opening of courts around the country, efforts are being made to ensure that the game is played with greater frequency nationwide.
And we should expect a lot more for tennis in Guyana for this year, 2017 and 2018, coming very soon. From the National Racket Center, I am Colwyn Abrams.
Georgetown Amateur Basketball Association Power 8 Malta Supreme Rainforest Water First, Second, and Under 23 League continue at Burnham Court on Sunday with 3 exciting games. Pleasant Guardians dismantle Cobras, Colts flatten pace setters, and Guardians defeat Pepsi Sonics. Here are the details.
Play continued in the Georgetown Amateur Basketball Association on Sunday in the Banks DIH First, Second, and Under-23 Division Leagues at the Burnham Court with 3 games. In the first game, Pleasance Guardians made light work of Cobras 91-53. It was a close first quarter, 2017, but by the second quarter, the Guardians were up by 20 points, and from that point, the Colts never regained any ground. Top scorer for Guardians was Nigel Bowen, with a game high of 29 points with 4 3-pointers, along with assistance from Delroy Critchlow with 11 points and Javel Sears with 8 points. In Game 2, the matches between Colts and pace setters, Colts flattened pace setters with a 50-point defeat, with the game ending 94-44. Pace setters was allowed to set no pace in the game, with the likes of Evan Johnson, who scored a game high of 23 points, with 1 3-pointer, and Timothy Thompson with 11 points. In the final game of the night, Guardians defeated Sonics 78-56. It was an even game by the end of the first quarter, with both teams on 14 points. And by the third quarter, the Sonics looked promising, but they were no match for the Guardians in the fourth and final quarter. Top scorers for the Guardians was Martin Chesney with 14 points with 2 3-pointers, along with Trenton Wolford with 12 points and 1 3-pointer.
We tell you now in football that the journey for the boys under 15 CONCACAF Championship being held in Florida started off rocky, where they lost to Suriname 3-1. HGP Sports will bring you the details in a subsequent sportscast. Finally, the Guyana badminton team won 3 golds, 2 silver and 3 bronze medals at the Caribbean Regional Badminton Championships played at the National Racket Center in Trinidad. This is the 8th year a Guyana team has medaled at the International Championships, and the Guyana Badminton Association expressed pride at being able to keep Guyana's flags flying. Medaling for Guyana were Priyani Ramdani, silver in the under-17 singles. Priya Ramdani and Tyrese Jeffrey, gold in the under-17 mixed doubles. Priyani Ramdani, gold in the under-17 doubles. Tyrese Jeffrey and Akil Haynes, bronze in the under-17 doubles. Akiba Ramja, silver in the under-19 doubles. Jonathan Mangar, bronze in the under-19 doubles. Match played on day 4 finals as follows. Under-17 girls single finals, Priya Ramdani lost to Imani Mangor of Suriname in a 3-setter, 2-21, 21-12, 21-13. Under-17 girls doubles finals, Priya Ramdani and Imani Mangor defeated Faith Samrani and Shasi Samarpur of Suriname 21-11, 21-13. The team will now be playing in the Under-19 team tournament, which started yesterday. That's all we have for tonight's sportscast. Back to you, Travis.
No deal making between ministers and ExxonMobil. Finance Minister clarifies visit to ExxonMobil headquarters. Enforcement playing a major role in road safety. More than 10,000 drivers charged with traffic offences. And CH&PA mounts legal action against owners of large plots of undeveloped lands. Those were our major headlines. For these stories and more, you can go to our website. It's www.hgptv.com. I'm Travis Chase. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.